Welcome to Stream Detroit, episode something of Big Digital Thinkers. I'm Mike McClintock with the co-host here, Brad Fox. Today we've got Jared Skolnick of TripleLift. How you doing?
Doing well,
Good.
thanks.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
So, TripleLift, programmatic and native platform. Explain that to me like I'm a grandma.
Yeah, let's break that down.
I'm this close to being that.
Let's break that down. Programmatic native. It's jargon. So,
right. So
yeah.
We got a lot of jargon soup going on.
So let's start with native, which is a big buzzword these days. Advertisers have been trying to get consumers' attention more and more online, and consumers are ignoring banners. They don't see them anymore. Banner blindness is a term we hear a lot.
Very blind, yes.
Yeah, and eye tracking studies show that nobody sees the banners anymore.
And there's ad blocking too, which is exacerbating the problem.
Exactly.
Sure, right?
So yeah, and they're forcing the issue to not be seen. So advertisers have gotten more intrusive with things that pop up in front of you and scream at you and get in the way, and the brand gets noticed, but the truth is the brand loses value often in some of the studies because the consumers find this intrusive and they find it insulting, and it's just getting in their way.
Yep.
The concept of native is to put advertising more in stream with content so that it looks, feels, plays like the content. Brand gets recognized, consumer is not insulted. And we refer to it as a respectful way to deliver the ads. It also helps bring creative back to the forefront, which is something that's been lost for quite a while. So that's the idea of native, and it doesn't have a single definition, and it's used differently.
Well, maybe that's
across
why
the
everybody
web.
says it's something different.
Yeah, exactly, because it really is. Yeah.
So, but it's video, but it's also static ads. But video is a big component of that.
Right? Absolutely, yeah. The idea that you can use sight, sound, and motion within the context of exactly how the publisher is using sight, sound, and motion means the advertisement is received more readily. It's the idea of product placement in television and things like that. It's kind of going back to where sponsorships were in the '60s on television.
Soap operas.
Yeah.
It's all soap operas for the web.
Yeah.
It's
actually all wrestling. It's all wrestling.
It's all wrestling.
It's all WWE. Right. It's all scripted.
That makes perfect sense. So when we say programmatic, and we hear people talk about publishers versus advertisers. What's a publisher?
Yeah. So a publisher would be like New York Times or anybody that's serving content on the web is a publisher. And an advertiser.
They're the soap opera, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And then you've got advertiser, like let's say Nike is an advertiser.
Right. So they're the soap.
Yep. And there's a bunch of intermediaries in there. And the idea of programmatic is to make it easier for Nike to be on New York Times when it's most appropriate for Nike.
Right.
And frankly, most appropriate for New York Times by what programmatic does is it takes all the data that we have, and believe me, the industry has all sorts of data.
Yep.
Thankfully, most of it's anonymized in a way that we don't know it's Mike or Brad.
Yep.
We just know it's some guy that's here in Detroit who might have a particular demographic and things like that. But then using that data, New York Times can say to hundreds of buyers at one time, who wants to spend on this individual, as opposed to who's buying 1,000 ads that are going to go to whoever I serve them to. So the idea is you go to the New York Times while the page is loading. The ad slot is saying, hey, here's the information I have on this user. Buyers are bidding. It's an auction. It's NASDAQ.
So it's a real-time bidding auction that's happening while you're loading the page.
Exactly. So and by the time
this is all happening within
100 milliseconds.
100 milliseconds.
Yep. And hundreds of buyers.
I was going to say 112 milliseconds, but clearly, but 100
is about the same
is a
speed
more accurate.
Yeah.
So it's happening in 112 milliseconds, and
the idea being that all this data is processed. The person that can pay the highest for that ad gets the spot. Publisher gets more money that way.
So you got Nike, Adidas, and Reebok.
Exactly. And it's got all sorts of great rules. So like New York Times could say, hey, we have Visa is sponsoring the entire sports section this month. So if MasterCard bids, just block them.
That can get blocked.
We just can't even serve them. And then it moves on to, let's say, Nike or something like that. So it's this idea of using all that data to serve the most appropriate ad, which frankly, like as much as the consumer doesn't want to be tracked and doesn't want to be followed, if you get an appropriate ad and it's respectful, it just makes a lot more sense. Exactly. Yeah. You're gonna. It's more well received. You're going to respond more positively to the brand and the publisher. So it's kind of that win across the board.
So to sum it back up, TripleLift in that ecosystem of programmatic and native content within publishers and advertisers. What's TripleLift do?
So TripleLift is a programmatic exchange for native advertising, and only native advertising. Like that's the whole point. Is
so you get better creative.
Yeah, our mantra is respectful ads, and the idea is that we want to put creative at the forefront. We want brands to be. We want to talk to those creative agencies once again and get them excited about digital ads, where these days they're just not. They're like, I don't want to make another banner.
So how's that work? I mean, when you say respectful ads and talk to the creative agencies about it, what's new and different with that? What are you trying to get them to do?
So that's where the programmatic native joining together can be so valuable. So what TripleLift brings to the table is some technology that's able to take 4 pieces of creative, 4 elements of a creative, and manipulate them across all the different publishers without losing what the creative agency was after. So the brand is able to provide logo, copy, image, and call to action. I'm sorry, and landing page. And with those 4 things, it'll be presented on each page completely differently. But it's done in a way that makes sure the creative is still at the front, and we have something called computer vision, which scans the image and knows where to crop, what elements are important, and which are less important. So if a particular layout has to be more vertical or more horizontal, you're not cutting off somebody's head that was in the image in order to make it fit there.
Because nobody likes to have heads cut off. No, I mean that's like just
that's not cool.
Not at all.
It's not cool. No, so I would imagine from a creative agency standpoint, it's a huge time saver, right? Because you have this versioning issue, which you've potentially solved for, right? Because you know, if you're a traditional ad banner campaign, you have kind of the big 3 ad units, right? You have the long and skinny one at the top, you have the skyscraper on the side, and then you have the square box, right? Generally speaking, those are 3 big ad sizes. But even within that context, you could have all these different version issues. But if you can solve for that, where it's like, okay, what background to serve to what person, you're solving for a lot of those challenges. And by the way, the dirty secret of banner ads is the creative departments don't care for it because, frankly, it probably is not going to win any awards, right? Creative agencies, creative folks, and I'm not picking on creative folks, the way they have historically won awards is through the 30-second spot. And you know, frankly, how consumers are taking in content in general and how they choose to, and there's a lot more choice, which is a good thing, right? Back in the old TV days, it was like you just sit there in front of the, oh, here comes a 30-second spot, and you're going to watch this. But now there's more choice. The consumer can choose what to consume or not to consume. But the creative folks don't win awards generally, or doesn't fill their portfolio or their giant pizza bag of awards with banners. And so this is a potential it would be much more interesting, I would think, to creative agencies.
So are there new kinds of styles of ad?
Yeah.
You know, what's new? What's coming? I mean, obviously we can go all the way to this end on the 30-second Super Bowl ad. What's the other one?
So, for example, like you mentioned, video can be included and things like that. There's something called a cinematograph, and that in and of itself isn't new. And what it is you have an image, and let's say there's let's say it's an image for clothing, for female clothing, and there's a woman in a flowing dress in a field, and she's leaning against a tree and she's blowing on a dandelion. And what a cinematograph is all of that is a still image, but the dandelion, you're seeing the pollen or whatever that is floating away, and it just keeps repeating that. So it gives you this one little thing to draw you in, and it's very, very tasteful. But it's not a full-on video. It's still just an image. It's basically a GIF. But this is a type of ad that's been used before, but it's being now put into the context of the content itself, which is making it so readily observable. And again, to the creative teams being able to do something fun with that, this is somewhere where creative teams are like, wow, something in digital that isn't video, but I could win an award for. That's interesting.
So you got to go to the creatives and say, okay, so here's all the different contexts of what your ad could be served on, and you've got to make it fit. So you're not on a sports story with a completely non-sports oriented type of an ad, floor cleaner or something.
Right, and that goes back to the data, which is a part of Beyond Native. That's a part of the entire ecosystem today and how that data gets used. Programmatic makes it usable on an impression level, so each individual ad is tailored to an individual user. Now, look, there's all sorts of things that could go wrong in that process, including aggressive buyers and sellers who are looking for ways to boost their revenue, that may mean you're still not getting the best ad. But the goal is getting closer and closer to that nirvana of you're not even going to really notice it's an ad because it's a message you welcome seeing. Whether you click on it, transact with it or not, you're just recognizing, hey, I'm a Nike fan. I might be buying some shoes in the future. I saw that ad. It's reminding me that when I go to the store, I should get those new sneakers.
Gotcha.
I like how you use the word sneakers because that's proper. Around Michigan, it's tennis shoes, but I grew up sneakers. I'm a sneakers guy.
He probably says soda too.
I do, and there is a line. I'm not kidding
You do?
There's a chart. So this is a homework assignment for our 5.7 million viewers.
Yeah, it's 5.8 now.
There is a chart out there that you can find out where the line is geographically, like on a map, when the word soda, when people stop calling it soda and call it pop. And it's between Syracuse, New York and Rochester, New York, and somebody's created a map.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the same thing with
I think it's
sneakers.
the same people who play euchre.
Probably, and I played pitch. I don't know tell you.
I'd like to be very clear that I call it soda and I call you pop.
Hey, is that a reference to my age, or just how handsome I am?
Just saying.
So you guys know each other, right?
Yeah, so
It's a long story, but Jared and I met, I don't know, let's see, about circa 2008. We both worked together at an ad network based in New York City.
Right.
And I was hired to become kind of open up their Detroit sales office.
Right.
So at the time, I think Jared, is that right, Jared? You were ad operations at the time.
ad operations. Really?
Yeah. I mean,
When you joined?
Yeah, that was 2008. I mean, you must be.
We wouldn't have been friendly. I was a dick then.
You called me Pops, but frankly, I think
Should've
you're the
saw
one
what
who's
it
in
was
the
like before
infancy
the
of your
show.
senility. So I think it's basically you. So, but yeah, so Jared, beyond being a lot older than I am, he was heading up the ad operations team. It's true. So we met. We don't need to name names, but it was a great experience for both of us, and we've been great friends. In fact, Jared is in town here in Detroit from New York City for a show that we saw last night. So that's a testament to our relationship as not lovers but just friends. It's just friends.
The drag show?
Okay.
Or the-
But no, it was not
Okay,
a
I'll
drag
give you
show.
this.
The show we went to was
Oh, that's one of that.
that show.
And
Yes.
you got to hang out.
Yep. I'm the rhinoceros.
Yeah.
He's
The
the
hip
hop.
hop
I don't know what it is with you in these great. I mean, there's a selfie with Jemaine.
Yeah.
You sent me a selfie with Siri herself.
I did.
The actual
yes,
Siri.
I
which
met
we
Siri.
should-
Wait,
we don't
what?
have a
Yes,
copy
at
of that.
CES. Yes. We'll
Yeah.
put that in the post edit.
Which year?
This year.
I was there.
Why didn't we?
Obscure-
What's the? Oh man,
You guys went and so
figures.
yeah.
He leaves me out of these things. That makes
CES
sense.
is kind of a big thing, but yes, I met Siri.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have told. I shouldn't
have.
have told you it was
Really
Jemaine. I should have let him. I
obscure
should have let him just keep walking.
Well, but you wouldn't have had that experience, and now we're blowing up, and now we had 5.7. It's now 5.9
Right.
million viewers because of
So
this selfie.
so Siri and Jemaine needed your autograph because of the
Correct.
success of Big
Correct.
Digital
I mean,
Thinkers.
5.7. It's nothing to sneeze at.
Right.
But I'd like to remind you that when we got the selfie with Jemaine and we were both taking out our phones to take pictures, that he insulted your phone and you in typical fangirl fashion were a blithering idiot.
The dude dissed my phone. I mean, what's wrong with an iPhone 5? He dissed my phone.
But you answered that it was a BlackBerry.
Well, yes, but I mean, I have to say, I was stargazing a little bit, and that's like that.
All
I'm
right.
not really impressed by that, but that was
Right.
that was pretty sweet because both Jared and I and Mike and
So
everybody
how
else.
did you break it to him that we weren't going to let him on the show today?
Well, so Britt.
Well, they were on their way to Cleveland.
They're the land of Cleves. Yes,
Yeah.
they were. It's an entire land of Cleves. That's why it's Cleveland, right? So anyway, where the hell were we? What? We just went down a rat hole.
I don't know.
We were with Jemaine.
So you were talking about
Jemaine.
how did you break it to Jemaine that he couldn't
Well,
be on the
it's
show today?
after he said you guys are bothering me and it's kind of creepy. That's when we had to break it to him that he's not going to be on the show.
Okay, and he handled it okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, he told us it. He said, "Get away, creeps."
And then I had Brad going this morning that I saw Brett at breakfast.
Right.
So
Oh, you saw Britt?
no, I didn't, but I had him going. That it was
Oh,
it would have been a good it would have been a good conclusion
That
to
would have been
this
a great. And if Murray showed up, Murray, it would have been
that would have been huge.
present.
present
You would have had to call me.
prison. Yeah, I follow him on Twitter.
Prison.
He's Rice Darby. He's hilarious.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, New Zealand. You should go.
EWE should go. And
You're
we're
from New Zealand, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm actually from Old Zealand.
Well, I've actually been to New Zealand,
Right.
but yeah.
So
Actually,
now you are from-
experienced an earthquake in New Zealand.
Really?
Yes,
It was the New Zealand accent
that was
you
quite
had.
quite an experience.
Yeah, it's kind of like the British one, but lesser. Yeah, so Jared and I, anyways. Yeah, we digress. So, well, yeah, so we worked together for several years, and it was a
Great
great
segue.
experience. What's that? It was
Great
a great segue.
segue.
What? Just stop that right there. And yes, we're known for segues. Not the ones that you ride on. Jared and I actually talked about segues today.
Yep.
You know, the electrification and so forth. It's fascinating.
So there's actually a third person that we worked with named Kristen, and so we all went separate ways as we left that company. And Kristen is the one who got me back, who recruited me over to TripleLift, and I'm now. It's like we're in the same office practically again, because we're sitting in the same seats, kind of formation next to each other with this guy in Detroit, and got to find a way to utilize him somehow.
Put the whole band back together.
Yeah.
It's the old band. It's it's like a 3-piece band though. It's like Rush, not like the Who. That's a 4-piece band.
Right.
Rush is which is pretty unusual for rock and roll bands.
Which is Canadian as well.
Canadian indeed.
Right.
Yeah, they're great musicians. But anyways, yeah, we'll get the band back together at some point.
Fly the Conchords, the largest band in New Zealand.
It's the biggest folk duo rock duo. Folk
rock duo.
Oh, I thought it was just the largest number of people in a band in New Zealand, too.
Right, because that wouldn't be a band; it would just be a solo act, wouldn't it?
A duet.
Right, or a duet.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So how do you handle the anonymization of all this kind of stuff? If you're doing native content, where's the line that you draw on that?
Well, the nice part is that the native element has no impact on the use of data. The use of data is the same across the ecosystem. The use of or lack of use of the data is the same across the ecosystem. One thing that's really interesting, you brought up the ad blocking. You're asking about the anonymization. I'm very passionate about consumer data, but also the other side, which is really important, which is consumer privacy.
Yeah.
And one thing there's a couple of different movements that are really interesting. There's a nonprofit called the DigiTrust.
Okay.
And it's really been slow to get off the ground, and that's not surprising, because anytime you try to make a movement in an industry, these things take a lot of time.
Right.
But what DigiTrust is attempting to do is it's attempting to get the buyers and sellers of data to utilize them as a transactional means that's independent.
Okay.
And because they're a nonprofit, they're a co-op that's funded by all the members, and they're ultimately answering to like the IAB and such.
Right.
And they're literally based in DC. They have a lobbyist and everything, and they're working with regulators. The idea is to be able to find the right balance of using the data, making sure it's anonymized, and assuring that regulators are comfortable with this, even before consumers.
Right.
Because forget about. Just for a moment, it doesn't matter if the consumer is disappointed. If it gets regulated, the whole thing disappears.
Yeah.
So satisfying the regulators and then satisfying the consumers, and a side effect of what the DigiTrust would be able to do is it would remove a lot of what's referred to as latency on publisher pages. So today, as that page is loading, it could be really slow because there's dozens of different data entities trying to get access to that data.
Cookies.
And instead, the cookies, exactly. And what this is saying is all of those cookies would transact independently through the DigiTrust when that page is loading. So it's asynchronous, and it's happening behind the scenes, and it would
it's all asynchronous.
It would really it would really help the publishers. So it's another one of those obvious win situations, but it requires a lot of the data partners to relinquish some of their control, so they're a little reluctant. But now that ad blocking has become a big thing, I think the publishers are going to push it, because if we get something like this through regulation, then the publishers will have a big win where the ad blocking is not as effective, and consumers won't want to block the ads as much because they won't be so insulting and so intrusive.
Got it. So they're trying to regulate themselves before they get forced to be regulated.
Yeah.
But that's still tough. I mean, they don't want. Who wants to do that, right? You got to drag all of these parties that have, totally different outcomes that they want to all row in the same direction.
Well, the nice thing is that one of the largest programmatic parties that isn't Google is the founding member of this Rubicon project, and because they are such a large user of this data and are putting some emphasis behind it, if the publishers buy in, which they're starting to, the dominoes will fall. Google,
the network, and Rubicon together are
they're the bulk of programmatic buying,
right?
Yeah.
So you're basically you get those two. I mean, what's bigger, Google or Rubicon?
Well, it depends on what you mean by bigger. Yeah. Rubicon reaches more individuals in a month than Google. Google reaches the individuals they reach more times in a month. So it's a hard comparison.
But everything else together is the rest.
Right, right.
And so basically it's Rubicon and Google. Is it Google Ad Network?
AdX.
Or AdX.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Exactly. Yep.
So what does all this mean from your perspective for kind of the agency? Jared and I, as we've mentioned before, we work together, but we've seen a lot of changes over the years in terms of how media is transacted. Right. First, it was kind of analog advertising, so magazine, print, and so forth, and TV and radio, to digital. But now, even within the digital framework, because of programmatic, it's changing how that value or that the dollars get exchanged, if you will, like how the dollars pass. It's been through an agency, they place a media buy, it's on a media plan, they pay their bills presumably on time. But now with programmatic, a lot of that agency buying and selling is changing because the three of us could put together an ad campaign without having to hire an agency and just buy a bunch of ads and say, hey, that's a great idea, we should promote our show.
We should probably, yeah. That's a great idea for a business.
Phenomenal.
I know a programmatic platform that could help you deliver those ads very effectively.
So
we've got all the pieces right here. We just need bourbon.
We'll handle that a little bit later on. But so it's affecting, like, from your perspective, like the whole how the dollars trade hands, right? So on one hand you have the agency's role seemingly is being diminished from the media buying and selling standpoint. Planning certainly is important still, but the buying part, it's changing. So from your perspective, and how does that affect, or how do you guys play in that ecosystem?
So it's interesting because there's tension all along all of this. There's tension with the consumer. There's tension with the brands, et cetera. The biggest tension is at the agency today, in my opinion, and I think it's a healthy tension because there's a lot of reevaluation that's going on. There's a lot of middlemen between the brand who's trying to advertise and the seller that wants that advertisement to show up. And some of those middlemen provide tremendous value and should remain, and others don't and shouldn't. And it's going to be different in a lot of different scenarios, and that's where I think the agency provides value, is determining which channels to use to make sure that you're getting the most value for the media dollar. That the dollar you spend on media is not 30 cents when it gets to the media, but it's 70 cents that goes to media, and the rest goes to the intermediaries, et cetera. But what the agencies are struggling with this right now, because there was a time where the creatives led the direction of a lot of this on the brand's behalf, and then the agency bought based on that. It moved a lot towards the planners with digital, especially when it was banners, and even now with pre-roll video or linear video of any kind. And I think it's going to move back toward the creative again very slowly, but that tension has meant that the agency's constantly under pressure to reduce their margins on behalf of the brand.
And that's one of the key issues, right? Because one of the things that personally I don't think is, I just hit my microphone. Hopefully that comes out and
that's it. Start over.
Do-over. But I think
reboot.
One of the things that's happening at the agency level is, we kind of mentioned that agencies have been buying media on their clients' behalf. Now with programmatic and DSPs, which is a demand-side platform, it's basically at DSPs and ad exchanges. That's how you can kind of transact or buy. But agencies also have these things called trading desks. So now the agency, and part of what's driving this is the margins that were at some of the ad networks that Jared and I may have worked in the past. But the other thing is they're now buying and selling media. So it's like this double dip. And that's one of my, it's kind of like not a pet peeve, but nobody's talking about it.
I'd argue it's a triple dip, but let's come back to that in 1 second. Let's get something out of the way to help clarify, because there's so many intermediaries and terms. So we have the ATD using a DSP and data from a DMP to buy on an exchange or platform from an SSP in order to deliver an LMNOP. So
like real?
All of that was real except the LMNOP.
Oh, the LM. Okay.
Yeah, but we'll have these things scrolling. We'll have DSP right here. Sean, this is another challenge for you, Sean. DSP is going to appear right here. We'll have a dictionary and a FAQ at the end of the show. So stay tuned. You'll get all the terminology.
My point is that we've created an environment that obscures the channel and the path, if you will, for the purpose of ultimately finding ways to take margin here and there. And it's not that people don't know the margins being taken. The brand knows most of what's going on. but it makes it very easy for them to turn an eye to it and not worry about it, because ultimately, whether 40 cents reaches the supplier or 70 cents reaches the supplier, if they meet their ROI goals, sorry, another acronym, at least they're happy with what the results they get in the end. What we're trying to do now is expose that there are ways that you can get that 70 cents to the supplier. These are fake numbers. It doesn't, they're meaningless in the actuals. But getting more to the supplier will give you a better ROI, and you should be trying to achieve that. And the agency should be working on your behalf to do that. And what I was referencing about the triple dip is the fact that the agency trading desk, in my opinion, is an entity that was created to manage a lot of this, but also obscure more of the margin that they were losing elsewhere to make it up.
Correct.
Then by buying and selling, they've added another level. So that's why I think it's like a third level. The trading
1
desks.
+ 1 = 3 almost, right? Because you have the buying
Yeah.
and selling, and it's this third.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And if you look at some examples, like Viveki has made the decision to decentralize and put the traders in the media buying and planning units. And I think that model long term makes a lot more sense. You're putting the expert who is a trader. This is somebody who knows how to transact on programmatic, knows how to deal with the data platforms, and do the best algorithms on behalf of the buyer. Putting them in the same planning units that weren't using all of this information before, as opposed to keeping them separate. Now, this is where the tension occurs. The agency is going to have a tough time saying, I'm no longer hiding that margin, and I still want to make that margin. But again, if they can provide the value, if I'm a buyer, I'll pay the value. I'll pay 15% instead of 10% if I know I'm getting twice the value. Why not? And I think the agencies just really have to find a way to not defensively, but defend what they're doing and show the value, as opposed to constantly hiding what they think isn't defensible.
Right.
So that's the interesting tension that's gonna play out. And I think when the creatives get more involved, a lot of this comes more out in the open, because the creatives just don't care. All they care about is, I want to win an award, I want the most creative, I want the buyer to be happy. And if that starts to lead the conversation again, I think some of this becomes a little less relevant, because everybody's going to be focused on that instead.
So how does that happen?
It's starting to happen naturally, and again, it's if ads are being blocked because they're disrespectful, if regulation is saying we have to use less data, the creatives are going to scream from the rooftops like, we've been telling you, you got to focus on the creative, not the data. But even with data, you can do so much with a good creative. Again, it goes back to like the 30-second Super Bowl commercial is constantly, like, you see commercials during the Super Bowl for brands you don't care about, and you remember them for months.
Right.
You see ads online for brands you love and don't remember a damn thing. It's because they're focused on making something memorable. And when that starts to happen online, and it is starting to happen online, because the value, if you look at the growth of digital and how much money is going into it, and TV hasn't declined yet, but the growth has slowed tremendously, and there's no doubt that's moving into digital. You can't just take your 30-second commercial, put it online, and hope it works. You've got to use the data to make it even better, tell a more memorable story, because Mike wants to hear a different story than Brad wants to hear, than Jared wants to hear. And
how do they scale that, though?
Well, again, it goes back to a combination of create different messages for your macro groups at the creative level, and then use technology for the micro groups to like manipulate those messages. So native.
So how would they go? How would they do that? How much macro would they create?
Well, it does depend, but like here's an example. Home Depot could do a national campaign.
Okay.
And what they could do is they do their whole typical spiel of Home Depot, and they make you feel really friendly about the salesperson in the store and all that stuff. And you show the guy on the ladder who's doing his own thing, and he's really hammering a shingle, which you would never do because there's no nail there or whatever.
But he's
it
wearing safety goggles.
Right,
so
of course.
Okay,
and
it's because that's the lawyers, and then the mouse type at the very bottom force them to do so. Yeah, otherwise, they take their chances.
And his 14-year-old son's holding the ladder, because you have to have a spotter.
With a lawnmower.
Exactly. Let's talk about e-lawnmowers. No, never mind.
Haptic lawnmowers.
The robotic ones. Yeah.
Self-driving lawnmowers.
No, they're
there it is.
For real.
No, it's really like Roomba for your lawn.
They're like $200. You could buy them right now.
A Roomba for your lawn?
Yeah.
This is a thing already?
This is
How
a
did
thing.
I miss that?
It scares the hell out of me, but it's
Right.
a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when robots have blades, I'm a little worried.
Somebody's going to hack that. Oh,
Yep.
This is an even better idea. An app that hacks when somebody else is, your neighbor's doing their lawn, hack it so that thing comes over to your yard and does your yard at the same time.
No, you know what somebody's going to do? They're going to have a drone come over and grab the robot and bring it over.
Well, whatever.
You
Either
just
way.
flip the drone upside down and mow the lawn.
Yes. Genius. I mean,
There you go.
I'm telling you, we're
And
providing
this is available at Home Depot now in their ads?
So yeah, there you go.
Close.
So Home Depot creates, let's say, a 30-second, but what they create is they create 25 seconds or 20 seconds
Okay.
of a national ad. This is the
Right.
message I want to give about Home Depot. And then the last 5 or 10 seconds, based on the geographic area, the current weather, male or female recipient of this ad,
Offer,
changes
deal.
what the offer is. Exactly. So maybe it's currently raining.
Yeah.
So it's like promoting the robotic thing that cleans your storm drains.
Yep.
Or it's 110 degrees and
Right.
it's on a 3-day heat wave in Detroit, and it says
So you might have to have
here are the air
hundreds of these
conditioners.
variables.
But those don't even need to be created. They can literally send camera-ready art for an air conditioner, the storm drain cleaner, and the hammer. And the ad, again, it goes back to like the 4 pieces that they would send to TripleLift for a native ad. And that can all be plugged in dynamically at the ad serving time. So they really only have to create one video and then all of these elements that get fed in real time based on data. So it's very, very doable. The hard part is the creatives aren't being told that it is that easy. And the creatives are a little worried about, I'm losing some of that control. I need to see it in action. I need to see it in action.
Right.
So it's a tipping point that will be reached as more and more more and more brands are simply going to insist, I have to do this. The automotive shops, parts suppliers are doing a ton of this right now. It's raining, I'm selling wipers. It's sunny, I'm selling car wash things, and they're doing it a lot. And I think as more and more of that just becomes, it's being used more prevalently, that it just becomes natural.
Yeah, that makes sense because it can be very expensive. To a certain degree, that kind of modular creative has been happening for a while. But like TV, for example, like a lot of dealer associations, like your Metro Detroit Ford dealers,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of running
Right.
footage, right? So you have running footage, and there might be a 5-second donut or a 5-second donut at the beginning and a 5-second
I
donut
knew we
at
were
the
going
back.
to say donut at some point.
Right, because it's.
You said donut.
I did say donut. Ooh, donut. So the point is, like
Chocolate shake?
they no chocolate shakes.
No
That's
chocolate.
please.
It's not a wiener circle.
No.
chocolate,
We cannot
Definitely not.
have any Irish sausages being shown today either. But the point is, so this modular creative has been done for years, primarily in television. But you have a 5-second beginning, 5-second, like an empty spot, 20-second meet of the the car running down the street or whatever, and then at the end it's like it's $199 a month, and it might say the beginning might be, hey, here's the new event. It's truck month, rolling footage, and at the tail end $199 a month. So, but in the digital age, you're right. There's that element of letting go of some of that creative control that people don't want to, but frankly, it has to happen because it's expensive to do video.
But so I mean, they got to do that. They can do that with TV, but you can take it a whole nother level with this, because you don't have to be stuck with saying truck month all month.
Right. You can change it out in
Key
an
it in.
instant. Yeah, exactly. And it's I love the example you brought up, because being here visiting in Detroit, I'll throw the plug in that, like, I wish every segment was looking at what automotive is doing, because they tend to be the ones. Automotive tends to be the one that tries these things first. Automotive is much more willing than finance, for example, as they should be, to experiment. But at the same time, that means the finance buyers, the Fidelities and the Chase banks, should be watching this and saying, here's what automotive's doing that's working. Here's what they're doing that I really don't feel so good about. And they should start doing it, because it's being proven that you can do it. It's totally manageable. It's not that hard. The complexity everyone thinks exists is being minimized every day. And most importantly, you're not losing control.
Well, the other thing I would add to that is that it's also a much more personal experience for the end user, which is the consumer, right? So in that car scenario, it's like if it's not relevant to you, first of all, you're making a mention of the event or where it is. It's your Metro Detroit Ford dealers. It's like all of a sudden it tells the person, Detroit, that's me. Or in the case of digital creative, why could and you're doing it now, but you got to make it makes the message that much more relevant to the consumer. So it's a much better, it's just a much better experience for the end user.
And as we make it more relevant, the concept of relevance will become less creepy. Because right now there's no doubt.
We always want to be less creepy.
What's that?
We always want to be less creepy.
Yes. There's no doubt
That's
that
always a
there
good
are
goal.
elements of data targeting today that can be really creepy. And advertisers are, that's another layer of concern right now where
Beyond privacy, right? It's just a creepy factor.
Right. It's just the like, how did you know I wanted that underwear? Like it just gets to a point of you're like, that's not the kind of thing I want you to be.
Especially when it's like women's underwear, and you're not.
Why was that in his Amazon shopping cart? Why was it in there, Jared?
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure that out, and I actually know, but I don't think I should disclose that here.
Right.
But the idea that we can get to a point where people are comfortable with, it shouldn't be to the level of like Minority Report and. Was it Minority Report or Vanilla Sky, where it was like this crazy, like...
It was all crazy.
Yeah, hey, Brad, here's the coffee you need right now because I've noticed that your blood pressure is down and you're about to fall asleep. Or, I don't know, making this up.
You did go through a weird phase there. Vanilla Sky and stuff, that was very odd.
Yeah.
I didn't see either of those movies, so I'm going to go with it.
Really?
Yeah.
You should do that.
If I like creepy movies.
Nah, I don't know.
You should definitely Vanilla Sky, Vanilla Latte. It's very appropriate. So.
Women's underwear. It's all ball bearings these days.
Yeah.
Maybe you need a refresher course. There comes Fletch.
And we do have the refresher course at the end. So like as we mentioned earlier, we have lots of we'll have all the dictionary and fact for all the wonderful acronyms that we've been using.
Could I borrow your towel? My car just hit a water buffalo.
Hang on a second, you caught me with my mouth open.
Right there.
That is, how do you top that one?
I think we should top them with some Imperial margaritas at Imperial.
I think that's a great idea. In fact, maybe Jared, you could talk to them about what TripleLift could do for them over the course of having something to drink. I think that's all in favor. Say aye. Aye.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Jared.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having
coming to Detroit.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Jared. Great to see you. Great time last night as well. Flight of the Conchords.
Flight of the Conchords.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.